NASA recently reported the last decade was the hottest on record, and this comes as tech companies offer their solutions to the climate crisis. Microsoft announcing they want to do their part by reversing their lifetime carbon dioxide emissions. And here to explain what this all means is Shara Tibken with CNET. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Okay, so let's talk Microsoft. How are they going to be able to reverse this impact?
Yeah, so I mean, they made this really bold pledge that what they're trying to do is make sure that they're not emitting as much carbon dioxide as they're pulling out of the atmosphere. This isn't necessarily that they're going to be able to erase everything that they did, but they're trying to pull enough out that it kind of offsets what they put out there. So by 2030, they're planning to become carbon negative, is what it is. So they're planning to emit less carbon dioxide than they remove from the atmosphere. And then by 2050, they're planning to remove as much as they've created since their founding in 1975.
Okay, so how do you think they're going to take into account the consumer impact of their products?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of unclear exactly how they're going to go about some of this, but they did say they're going to take into account how much energy is consumed by their devices. Microsoft has a huge cloud business, and the Department of Energy found that 2% of all energy consumption comes from data centers. So these are those big server farms where, you know, every time you access Netflix, it's going to these and pulling it down. Okay. So those are things Microsoft is going to look at. You know, it's going to do traditional things like planting trees and, you know, working on other ways like that to put more, to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but also looking at some newer technologies as well.
Yeah, let's talk about the newer technologies and pushing these new innovations in climate technology.
Yeah. So there's, you know, a lot of innovative things that could remove carbon dioxide from the air, you know, putting it in soil. It's kind of, I'm not an expert on that specifically, and a lot of that technology is really new, it's expensive, it's not commercially available. Microsoft has committed $1 billion to this fund for the next few years, 4 years I believe, to help develop these sort of innovations. So these things that don't really exist or that are just getting started, they want to help fund those so that people who are working on these sort of things can come out with products and you know, availability of items that will remove carbon from the atmosphere.
Is this a trend we're seeing with big tech companies?
I mean, definitely. I think everybody's paying attention to their environmental impact. A couple years ago, Apple said that all of its offices, all of its operations run on 100% renewable energy. Microsoft is planning to do that within the next 5 years as part of this goal. Amazon has made some goals, Google. Basically, everybody is focusing on this. Microsoft kind of took it a step farther. It's, you know, this was really ambitious, really bold proclamation. They even admitted that it's going to take some technologies that don't even exist yet. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this.
I mean, they could create it, if anyone can create it, right? Yeah. Microsoft could. So you mentioned all these other companies. Is this, you know, with Microsoft taking it a step farther, is this putting pressure on other tech companies to say, okay, wait a second, what is my carbon footprint? Yeah,
so I mean, like Google has been carbon neutral, which means that they aren't emitting more than is taking out. But part of that could also involve paying for sort of credits and things like that. So Microsoft is trying to avoid that, and it's really trying to take this a step farther. So I think we're going to see companies respond. Google has made some comments that, you know, it needs to do more. The other big thing with Microsoft is that it can put a lot of pressure on its suppliers. So we've seen that happen with Apple. It's made this move towards renewable energy, and it also wanted its suppliers to do that. So it kind of, you know, puts pressure on them. And Microsoft said that it will be doing that. Like, it will factor into its procurement plans how much carbon its suppliers emit and what they're doing to help the environment. So this, you know, when this affects companies financially, they're going to start doing more to offset the emissions.
Sure, I know. And then this huge movement for the climate crisis, especially with young people. And a lot of young people are their consumers. So.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think that with consumers today are very conscious of what's happening. I mean, you know, here in the Bay Area, we see wildfires happening. Australia is going through terrible wildfire issues. People are very conscious of it. And if companies aren't paying attention to it and aren't addressing it in some way, their consumers are going to notice eventually. And I think that we're going to see all companies start to pay more attention to this. Tech is really making it a big focus, and that's really promising to see because in the U.S., where tech goes, a lot of companies follow.
Sure, that is true. All right, Shara Tibken, it's always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
All right, thanks so much. And remember, you're streaming CBSN Bay Area. We'll be right back.